All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a wildly provocative argument. We're looking at the claim that the famous symbols of Freemasonry, the aprons, the square and compass, are actually a disguise. We are exploring this idea that what millions of people see as just a simple fraternity of charity is really a veil, hiding a profound hidden spiritual science. The source text doesn't pull any punches either. It literally claims participants have been lulled into a lifelong sleep of their higher consciousness by the legend of a temple built with hands. That is a bold assertion, right? The idea that most people get so caught up in the literal concept of physical builders, they sleep right through the higher esoteric reality. So, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look beyond the Masonic veil, then explore the mystery of the loss, dive into Kabalism and the secret word, examine death, spiritual rebirth, and the quest, and finally, look at restoring the lost word. Let's peel back the layers. Section 1. Beyond the Masonic veil and the illusion of the surface. Publicly, the surface-level exoteric definition of Masonry focuses heavily on being a good person, earthly ethics, and using physical temple building as a handy metaphor. But the esoteric reality proposed by the author is radically different. It's described as a hidden high science of grace and a literal path to mystical rebirth. You've probably heard the official line before, that it's a beautiful system of morality veiled in allegory. Well, the source insists those moral rules aren't actually the secret at all. They're just an outer cortex. It's essentially a protective layer engineered to guard a deeper sanctuary from anyone who simply isn't ready to understand it. Moving on to Part 2, the mystery of the loss and the anatomy of a catastrophe. To really grasp this veil, we've got to look at the craft legend itself. It starts off with the glorious erection of a grand temple, but then it's violently interrupted by the death of the chief builder. This catastrophe causes the loss of the true architectural plans and a deeply powerful divine word, which leaves the entire building as this unfinished experiment. So, this catastrophic loss plunges the builders into what's called the state of widowhood. But the author clarifies that this isn't actually about ancient stonemasons. It's about us. It represents the rational human mind, completely cut off from direct divine experience, left with only echoes and substitutes of the truth. All right, Section 3, Kabalism and the secret word, the roots of the disguise. Where does this whole idea of a lost word even come from? The text points directly back to older Jewish traditions, specifically the Tetragrammaton, which is the true, unpronounceable divine name. Think of the written consonants as the physical universe, the outer shell. But the lost vowels, those represent the animating, inner divine life that humanity has somehow forgotten. And there's a really fascinating historical parallel here. Because the true divine name was considered way too sacred to say, or was just lost to time, a substitute word, Adonai, was used during the exile of Israel. The text argues this perfectly mirrors the Masonic tradition, which explicitly relies on substituted secrets after their own mythical catastrophe. Which brings us to Part 4, Death, Spiritual Rebirth, Quest, and the Architecture of the Soul. If the physical building is just a metaphor, what exactly are we building? On the surface, sure, it's a stone temple, but esoterically, it is human consciousness. To the public, death is just the end of life, but to the initiated, it is a mystical dissolution of the ego. This secret doctrine literally demands a spiritual resurrection. So, who is actually building this? The text is absolutely emphatic on this point. You are the material. You are the chief stone. This is not some weekend seminar. It is a lifelong, active ascent from earthly awareness to heavenly consciousness, built entirely within your own heart and mind. And our final section, Part 5, Restoring the Lost Word, the Unfinished Quest. Because foundational craft masonry is, by design, an unfinished experiment, the text sees an overarching evolution here. It begins with the original loss of the divine name in the Old Covenant. Craft masonry then arrives purely as a symbolic memorial of that loss. Eventually, this evolves into the high Christian grades, which actually claim to restore what was lost. The progression here is deeply human when you think about it. Since the early grades basically just acknowledge the loss and create a beautiful memorial to it, human nature demanded a conclusion. The high grades were developed by those hungering to finally restore that lost word and achieve the spiritual completion that the early rituals intentionally left out.
The author takes this massive 32-point thesis and distills it into one cohesive vision. Ultimately, this is a story of divine providence, driven entirely by a quest for a lost secret. It's deeply rooted in Kabbalistic tradition, and it seeks its true completion through the internal, spiritual rebirth of the individual.
Which leaves us with a profound thought to wrap up this explainer. If the symbols are literally just veils, and the physical temple is just a metaphor for the mind, we have to ask ourselves, was the ultimate secret ever meant to be found in a lodge or a ritual, or must it be built entirely within your own consciousness? It really suggests the true sanctuary has been inside us all along.